Hey, what's up, folks? I'm Dumb Waldo from VaporsForum.com. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Smoking Everywhere vs. FDA lawsuit that's going on in the federal courts right now. See, in the last year, there's been like a lot of new people that came into the community. There's a lot of new people coming to e-cigarettes. And I don't really think that everybody's understanding completely what's going on with this case because it started over a year ago. So it's not like everybody remembers things firsthand. Back in the summer of 2009, the FDA started seizing shipments from electronic cigarette companies coming into the United States. They would seize the shipments, they wouldn't let it come in, and they also wouldn't let it be sent back to the sender. So they caused a lot of companies to suffer hardship with regards to paying for shipments that got seized, they never received it, and couldn't get a refund because it couldn't be sent back. The biggest company that this happened to is a company called Smoking Everywhere. They had the most to lose. They lost containers, like those big giant metal shipping containers that you see on ships and in movies and stuff. They lost containers of stuff in seizure. So they decided that the only thing they could do was sue the FDA and argue that the FDA didn't have the right to hold those containers. See, the FDA was trying to say that electronic cigarettes are drug delivery devices and they should be regulated under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act, which would allow them to completely prohibit their sale and ban them from the United States until they've undergone certain testing procedures. Smoking Everywhere, on the other hand, they said these are not drug delivery devices. These are alternative smoking products, and they need to be regulated under the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act, which would not give the FDA the right to seize the shipments and stop them from being sold. So they sued over this, and they asked the federal court system to please decide this. The federal court assigned Federal Judge Richard J. Leon to preside over this. Richard J. Leon is the sole judge that will be charged with the responsibility of deciding whether electronic cigarettes are classified as a drug delivery device or if they're classified as an alternative tobacco product. After the lawsuit was started by Smoking Everywhere, another really big company, Enjoy, decided that they wanted to get involved in the lawsuit against the FDA as well. They were stuck in the same boat as Smoking Everywhere. They had millions of dollars of merchandise that was sitting in seizure, and they, were suffering a hardship as a result of it. Rather than go through costly litigation themselves, they convinced Smoking Everywhere to allow them to join and put their name on the complaint against the FDA. From there, it became known as the Smoking Everywhere and Enjoy versus the FDA case. Now, realizing that it could take literally years before Judge Leon renders a decision whether these are tobacco products or smoking cessation products, drug delivery devices, they asked the judge for an injunction. Now, what an injunction is this is a preliminary decision that's related to the case but doesn't specifically decide the outcome of the case itself. Now, it might be a little easier to understand if this was a murder case and it was the defense attorney filing an injunction to block introducing a knife as the murder weapon because the way that the police came about getting that knife was illegal. So what Smoking Everywhere and Enjoy is saying is that though you might grant them this authority in the future, and you may decide in the future that these are drug delivery devices, the simple fact that we're here in court pretty much proves that at the time that they were seizing products, they were not defined as drug delivery devices, and the FDA overstepped their authority by seizing those products. Well, Judge Leon sided with the e-cig sellers, and he ordered the FDA to release the seized shipments for those two companies. He didn't decide the case or make a determination as to whether e-cigs are classified as tobacco products or drug devices. He only decided that from the evidence presented to him so far, the FDA did not have the authority to make the determination that they did when they made it, and they did not have the authority to seize those shipments at that time. The FDA was obviously, upset about losing that injunction, so they filed an appeal. When they filed an appeal, this brought the matter to another court completely. The appeals court assigns a 3-judge panel that will decide whether or not the original judge's ruling was appropriate and it should stand, or if that ruling should be repealed. So what they did was they basically asked another court to determine whether or not the first court's ruling was accurate and correct. So this other court now has these 3 judges that need to make this decision. And in order to make this decision, they'll look over the evidence that was presented previously, and they will also allow the introduction of new evidence that's geared specifically towards this one purpose. Since the case started, Smoking Everywhere decided to stop pursuing it. Maybe it was too costly, that's something only they know. But they withdrew their name from the complaint, and they left NJOY standing alone against the FDA. Now, I'm not entirely sure how this next part played out and what the whole deal is with it. NJOY could have been a subsidiary company of them all along. NJOY could have been bought by them after the fact. I'm not really sure. But NJOY is now known as Soterra. So the lawsuit, with Soterra being the only one left, is now Soterra versus the FDA. It's not NJOY and Smoking Everywhere. It's Soterra versus the FDA. And that's who gets to present arguments in front of these 3-judge panel. Lawyers from Soterra and a lawyer from the FDA were able to present information and evidence to the 3-judge panel. That happened on September 23rd. They heard oral arguments from lawyers on both sides. In addition to hearing the oral arguments, the judges were allowed to ask questions to clarify each side's position and anything that they were unsure of. Now, the questions that were raised by the judges of the appeals court and they were posed to the FDA's lawyers, they've brought a sense of optimism to many people involved in legislative work trying to protect the e-cigarettes availability. The nature of the questions asked by the judges are leading many to believe that the outcome of the case that Judge Leon has to decide is going to be very favorable for electronic cigarettes. The FDA is really fumbling with an injunction hearing, so it's pretty logical to think that they're going to have a pretty weak showing in the actual lawsuit. Now, it's important to remember, this decision that's going to be rendered, it does not decide the case. It only decides one small element of the case, and that is not to say it's an important decision. This is an important decision to many vendors. See, the FDA sees shipments from lots of companies, and most of them are too small to go fight the FDA. They don't have the resources, they don't have the money to fight the FDA. So the little guys who might have had like a $5,000 shipment or a $10,000 shipment or an $80,000 shipment seized from them that don't have the money to sue the FDA, those guys could catch a break. Because what could happen now is if these 3 judges from the appeals court uphold Judge Leon's ruling, it will create a legal precedent that these other smaller guys will be able to use, and they will be able to cheaply go after the FDA and demand that their shipments also be released. But they will have to sue, and they will have to pursue legal recourse against the FDA. It's not like this decision will automatically release everybody's stuff. So, in the meantime, in the bigger picture, Judge Leon still has to make a decision that's still hanging in limbo whether or not these are drug delivery devices or tobacco products. That decision will probably be influenced by the outcome of this decision, but this decision will not determine the outcome of Judge Leon's decision. So we have to remember this and keep that in mind, that there's still a long road in front of us, even if this decision comes down in a favorable way for us. It's not going to decide the case. It's just going to decide if Smoking Everywhere and NJOY, nope, not Smoking Everywhere, Soterra. It's only going to decide if Soterra gets to have their stuff released by customs. Once that happens, if that happens, then legal battles can be raised by others to have their products released as well. So I hope this helped bring a little bit of understanding to the situation, and I hope people realize that we still have a long way before the decision as to whether or not this is a tobacco product or a drug delivery device is going to come down. But we do have very optimistic hopes for the future, and this could be a great windfall for electronic cigarette sellers all over America, should this come down in our favor. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you guys listening and checking me out. I'm Dumb Waldo from vaporsforum.com. Vape on.